Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know that a lot of you are busy, and to really take an hour out of your evening to listen to a call that might help your well-being. I really applaud you for that and congratulate you for that. So I'm so excited for this training. It's a training that has been in the works, kind of in my mind for quite a long time. And tonight I'm going to share a lot of the tools and techniques, as well as the kind of deep wellness wisdom that has helped me on my journey, that helps my coaching clients on their journey as well. And we're really going to dive into what it means to slow down, what it means to actually address our fatigue, address our overwhelm, and to start living a life that we really want to, rather than a life we feel we should. I have a lot of women that I coach, but also friends and relatives and colleagues who often complain about feeling fatigued. And boy, do I know that feeling as well. The feeling that you just want the whole world to stop and slow down. The feeling that you just want to crawl into bed and go fetal for a couple of days until you can catch up. And the feeling that you're on this treadmill that you can't get off. That is so, it's such a powerful feeling, and it really can affect everything from our fatigue, our digestion, feeling that sense of overwhelm and anxiety constantly at work can over time lead to chronic illness. But more to the point, what I've found is that it can really stop us from making decisions that truly align with who we are. So in short, we start living a life full of fear, and we make decisions based on fear, even if we're not aware of them or not. So tonight I just want to cut through that. I want to explore what it means to live a slow life, but living a slow life doesn't necessarily mean that we need to give up what we love. It's not a negative thing. It doesn't mean that we will stop being productive or we won't be able to achieve what we want. In fact, we'll find out that living a slow life can actually enable us not only to unlock the deep well-being that we deserve to own, but it will enable us to reach those goals in a much calmer, more effective and productive way. So let's get right into the training. I hope you've got a cup of tea ready and a pen and a paper, and that you're sitting, preferably seated on a chair with your feet on the ground, because we're also going to do some visualization a little bit later in the call. Feel free as we go through the call to enter any questions in the chat box. I won't be checking it regularly, but at the end of the call, I'm going to try and get to everyone's questions. And that includes people that are watching this via replay. You can still enter your questions in the chat box, and I'll hope to come back to them over the next week or so and get back to you. Of course, you can always email me at meg@beyondbeingwell.com if you have any questions. So let's dive in. I'm just going to share my screen so that you can see the presentation. And hopefully you guys can all see that now. If I can just get Dave, can you just let me know that you can see the presentation and you can hear me? That would be wonderful. Okay, perfect. So, as I said, tonight's call is all about slowing down to spark up. And by spark up, I mean getting energized, but also I think it refers to that feeling of being joyous and present that we all really strive to achieve, and somehow life seems to get in the way. So what we're going to chat about is why slowing down is necessary for our well-being. And I really want you to come into this call with an open mind, to really not look at slowing down as something that's going to hinder you or stop you from achieving what you want. I want you to come to this call understanding that slowing down might be a necessity to cure the fatigue and overwhelm that you might be feeling, and that there are very different ways that each individual person can go about that to achieve their own goals. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, like what does a slow life look like, and what are the health benefits as well as the kind of emotional and mental benefits as well. We're going to talk about that resistance that we seem to have about slowing down and how to kind of overcome that mindset so that we can really start to embrace a mindful life without giving up what we love. I'm going to share 2 awesome techniques that immediately are going to help you to reduce stress and anxiety. These are 2 tools that I use regularly with my coaching clients. I use them regularly myself, and I really think you're going to get a lot out of them. I'm going to talk briefly about my own roadmap to health and freedom, and then we're going to have time for questions and answers at the end. So let's get into it. For those who don't know me, I thought that I'd share a little bit about my journey so that you can understand why this topic is so close to my own heart. So I'm now a wellbeing coach and yoga teacher, but not more than 2 years ago I was working full-time. I was working for Oxfam overseas in a job that I had worked my whole career to get. I was stressed to the max. I was anxious all the time. I had worked for the best part of 10 years in international development and in public health, but there was something missing. And the more that I tried to strive and achieve, to feel that feeling like something was missing, the more I kind of was driving myself into the ground, both physically as well as emotionally and certainly spiritually. I really, from a young age, had felt a heavy sense of anxiety, like everyone was watching me and everyone was judging me, and I had to, no matter what, prove myself. And it still makes me really emotional today talking about how afraid I was to stop and to turn around. And I wrote a blog post about this today. You can read it at beyondbeingwell.com. And, you know, that feeling that I couldn't afford to stop because people would judge me and I wouldn't succeed. And really at the end of the day, what I can see now is that I was so afraid of the feeling of being ashamed, the feeling of shame. I was so afraid of feeling that feeling that I was running as fast as I could away from it. And I thought, you know, slowing down would be the equivalent of being ashamed. It would mean the end of my career. It would mean, you know, really facing the questions like, who am I without that? And I just couldn't stop for a really long time until my body quite literally fell apart and I ended up with adrenal fatigue overseas, with an autoimmune illness, unable to physically perform basic functions like having a shower. I was bedridden for 2 months, and it's not a pity party, this is just factual. My body was telling me that there was no other option but to slow down. And it took, you know, a long time to heal from that physically. And as part of that healing journey, I really quickly began to understand the importance of mind, the importance of mindset, and the importance of kind of our beliefs in shaping our physical well-being. And that's what I'm passionate about sharing now. You know, I retrained as a yoga teacher. I retrained as a wellness coach. I now really am fulfilling my passion of helping women who do want to contribute, women who want to give back, helping them do it from a place of wholeness rather than a place of fear. And the benefits of that are not only, you know, physical well-being, which is what I've discovered, but certainly much less emotional turmoil, much less drama, much less anxiety, and certainly starting to live life according to what I want, which, you know, now I'm currently in Hobart. We're living a location independent lifestyle. I get to travel as much as I want. I get to have the space to really create what serves me. And in doing that, I'm able to serve others as well. So that's a little bit about me. You can read more about my story and my qualifications on my website. What about you? What is going on for you right now? You might want to add something into the chat box. You know, you don't have to put your name. You can add it anonymously. It's fine. What's going on for you right now? Maybe you're feeling burnt out, anxious, Maybe you've got that paralysis, like you've got huge life decisions to make, but you're not sure which way to turn. You might be beginning to feel resentful of work, and that often comes when we feel like work is the thing that's impacting our well-being. When in actual fact, like we'll discover tonight, sure, what we're doing is important, but it's how we're doing it that is the most important thing. Maybe you feel like you want the world to stop so you can catch up. Maybe you've got undiagnosed, uncomfortable symptoms that haven't gone away. Particularly digestive upsets is something I hear a lot of. Embarrassing, can really hinder your ability to just experience life like you'd like to. Maybe you're frazzled or foggy in the head. Maybe you're just comparing yourself to others too much. You feel like your self-criticism is really holding you back from living a life of confidence. And these are all warning signs that it's time to slow down. Once something has manifested on the physical plane and you're experiencing it on a regular basis, that is a really solid way of beginning to understand what our bodies and minds are telling us, which is to change something. By the way, all of those things that I've just mentioned are extremely common, and part of my coaching clients would tell you that my approach is much more around fostering a sense of self-compassion as opposed to beating ourselves up for feeling any of these things. So let's talk about, why slowing down is necessary. You would have heard, of course, the notion that's quite popular in wellness speak now, this idea that the fight or flight response can greatly impact our experience of life, and that modern day life is making us constantly trigger the fight or flight response, which is an old kind of automatic hormonal and physiological response to stress. So if we're constantly operating in this mode where we're triggering certain hormonal reactions, the release of adrenaline and so forth, we're not actually operating in the opposite of that, which is the relaxation response or the rest and repair response. Part of the main aim of living a slower life is to enable us to learn to switch off the fight or flight response and to activate the relaxation response for more minutes of the day. The problem with operating in fight or flight, while short term it can help us, improve our capacity to kind of do short bursts of energetic work, over time, not only does the kind of endocrine system become exhausted, but we'll find out it can start a flow-on effect of enormous physiological changes in the body. It can exhaust us emotionally and mentally, and it can actually prevent us from being able to make rational, logical, productive, efficient decisions, which is what I think a lot of us want to be able to do so that we can be the best we can be. So slowing down in that regard can help us prevent the development of chronic illness, particularly inflammation, autoimmunity, digestive upsets, things like that. It can stop us, or what can certainly help us to address mental disturbances, anxiety, overwhelm, the feeling of constantly being stressed. That feeling when like the smallest thing is going to set you off? That is just an example of overwhelm. It's like there is no buffer left in your system, in your mind. There is no space to allow one more stressful thing in there. It also, operating constantly in this mode can help us, prevent us from sleeping, which then can catalyze this cycle of overwhelm, which I'll talk about as well. But more than that, slowing down enables us to feel joy and presence. And I think a lot of the words that I hear from my clients is that they would really like to actually stop thinking about their to-do list, and they would like to be able to be present in their relationships, and they would like to experience joy and happiness as well. And that's not too much to ask. I think sometimes we get caught in this idea that life has to be hard and we have to struggle. And I certainly just don't think that's the case. We are able to experience joy. Sure, we're not able to be happy 100% of the time, and that's part of life, is riding those waves. But there is certainly an ability within us all, no matter our circumstances, to connect with joy and to be present. It's a matter of training, and it's a matter of practice, and it's a matter of mindset. Slowing down can certainly reduce fatigue and restore energy and overall well-being. Absolutely improves work performance, improves relationships. You know, when you're overwhelmed, you're not the greatest partner, you're not the greatest friend. You can't physically or mentally have space for other people when your whole being is taken up in this fight or flight response. Like, it's not your fault. It's just that we're unable to access those deeper kind of empathy, caring, giving spaces when we're kind of stuck in this cycle of overwhelm. And, you know, slowing down to me is about promoting health that goes beyond just the absence of disease. It's about really understanding that health is physical and mental harmony. It's about doing things that make us feel alive. It's about doing things that light us up, and kind of getting rid of the things that aren't serving us as well. I just want to quickly, and if anyone joined my training last month on the missing piece of the wellbeing puzzle, I talked a lot more about this. So you can see that training on my website under the resources page. But let's just recap, you know, the effects of stress on the body. And I use stress and anxiety interchangeably because I believe that stress is an internal issue and not necessarily just something external to us. I believe our capacity to manage things that happen to us can create or not create stress, and therefore I use stress and anxiety interchangeably. So just looking at this, I mean, if stress were a disease that was easily tested, there would be 1 million drug companies working on it, and there would be a huge global uproar on the level of chronic disease that it's leading to. And yet we find that it's accepted and that it's actually promoted in this society. So it can affect, of course, our mood. So, you know, when you're stressed or anxious, you can be irritable, you can be depressed, you can lack energy, concentration, of course, the sleeping issues, headaches. You know, headaches is something that we've just come to think is normal, and it's actually not. It's not normal to be experiencing pain on a regular basis in any part of our body. Stress increases our blood pressure, increases our risk of a heart attack, you know, increases our heart rate and high cholesterol. On the immune system, you know, this idea that you're constantly on the cusp of getting sick, and you feel, of course, that you're able to get, you're more prone to getting sick in those stressful periods. It's because your immune system is lowered and you are not able to fight illness. Conversely, stress can also trigger autoimmunity reactions, so an overreactive immune system over time. And so it's really not addressing stress and just, you know, continuing to focus your well-being efforts on diet and exercise alone. It's like, I always use the analogy, it's like pouring liquid into a leaky bucket. It's just not going to give you the results that you want. On the digestive side, as I said, you know, some of those hormonal reactions that happen when we trigger fight or flight can actually promote the slowing down of the digestive system, which leads to bloating, cramping, uncomfortable symptoms, you know, irritable bowel syndrome, things like this. And of course, food sensitivities, which we're seeing huge increases in as well. These are stress-related conditions. They're not necessarily being caused by anything other than stress and anxiety. So loss of libido, you know, there can be hormonal upsets, infertility among women, aches and pains in the joints and muscles, and worryingly, you know, lowering our bone density, which for women is really important. So, you know, again, I say, why are we not addressing stress as part of the well-being picture? Why are we choosing to continue to live a life that is rushing, that is busy, that is bursting with things that we think are going to make us better or happier, instead of actually allowing space for the body to heal, allowing space for the mind to just recalibrate and come back to equilibrium, and just reducing that stress, reactivating the relaxation response. If our efforts were focused on that, then the well-being picture would be vastly different to what it is now. And this was my own experience as well. I got to the end of all the physical stuff. I'd done everything. I'd changed my diet, I'd changed my sleep, I changed my exercise. I was living, this healthy life, and I was still sick all the time. And it wasn't until I realized that I actually needed to go a bit deeper and address why I felt stressed and anxious, and to start to try and reduce those feelings, that I was able to drastically make changes in my well-being. I said this in the last training as well, but I'll recap. There is absolutely no difference between something that you imagine happening and something happening. And I'll explain that. If you have a dreadful fear of spiders, and that's a belief that you've had for a long time, your body is going to respond in exactly the same way if you see that spider in reality or if you think about that spider. Our thoughts and what we think can and do have a drastic impact on our physical body. I really want you to just take a second and let that sink in, because this is the key to this is the missing piece of the wellbeing puzzle that I talked about. Your thoughts and beliefs, as well as the way that you perceive the events around you, have a massive impact on your physical well-being. So all of those things that I just talked about in the last slide that can happen to you as a result of stress are often happening because we're creating them in our minds. For example, have you ever got an email from your boss, and you open the email, you see the subject line, and immediately the adrenaline starts pumping? And you're thinking, this is going to be bad. You open the email and you read the contents, and your boss isn't happy. You're creating, through that email, the equivalent response in your body to what you would be doing if you were running for your life. The surge of adrenaline, the perception in your brain that you've created that this is a bad email, and then the subsequent flow-on thoughts of the negative repercussions of that email are creating things in your body, are creating effects, are creating, and they're creating more thoughts as well. So really learning how to harness our mind, how to change the way that we perceive stress, and how to very quickly switch off the fight or flight and switch on the relaxation response. These are the tools. These are the tools that can absolutely change the way that you experience life. Just reiterate that the body and mind are not separate. We are absolutely interconnected beings. So I've talked about stress and anxiety, and then there's kind of this next phase, which I know that a lot of us have experienced, and myself included, which is called overwhelm. And this is when we've probably been triggering the fight or flight response again and again over a long time, and that is leading us to be sleep deprived, and we're worrying at night. We're constantly lying there awake, worrying what's going to happen, worrying about those emails, worrying about our to-do list, worrying about our children, so on and so forth, which leads to the fatigue that we feel. And therefore that fatigue, we know, leads to a whole lot of behavioral decisions around what we eat, what we choose to do with our time, and all of that stuff. And over time, there simply isn't the space. We become almost like the fight or flight response is switched on and we can't switch it off. So we're stuck. We're stuck in this system that is not allowing us to access kind of rational thoughts to get out of it. and we start to experience overwhelm because physically we don't have the reserves to continue to operate like that. Emotionally, we don't have the reserves. And you know that feeling when your brain is so full that it almost switches off. That is overwhelm. And that overwhelm then creates more stress and anxiety. And this is where women, we really come into our own and we start to go, and this is why I'm terrible at my job. And this is why I can't do anything. I knew that I wasn't able to handle stress. No, there's no such thing as not being able to handle stressful situations when you're in a state of overwhelm. You physically can't. You don't have the mental space. You're operating in a system that doesn't allow you that, and we'll go into that in a minute. So there should be none of this stuff around, I'm not good enough, of course I don't deserve a promotion because I can't even handle this. No, your body's doing something, and your subconscious mind and your mind are kind of switched on to this pattern that you don't have the tools necessarily to switch off yet, which is why it's so wonderful that you're listening to the call. And it becomes a cycle. And I talked a little bit about why we can't access rationality when we're in that sense of overwhelm. And if you look at the way that the brain is structured, and they've actually done studies on this, this reptilian complex, or where the instincts are, that's where the fight or flight response is triggered, from the amygdala and the hypothalamus. Those kind of old school brain areas is where we're operating in when we're in that mode. And you can see that the limbic system, the emotions, are kind of related. So it explains why you can feel certain things when you're in overwhelm, and everything kind of seems magnified. But they've shown in the studies that it's very difficult when you're in that mode to access the reason, the neocortex, or the outer edges of the brain. And there are pathways that just aren't there, which is, makes sense, because if we're running away from a predator, we don't need to necessarily be sitting there and being like, should I run this way or should I run that way? I'm not sure. We need to be acting on instinct. So can you see how overwhelm, and that paralysis that comes from overwhelm about making decisions and, what am I going to do with my life and all of that stuff, it's not your fault. It's not that you don't have the resources. It's that you just can't access the bit of your brain which can help you to make those logical kind of decisions about what you need. And in reality, we need all three parts of the brain at different times in our life, but we certainly can't be operating in a system which is preventing us from accessing the kind of what makes us so amazingly intelligent as humans. So I think I've gone a lot into the bad stuff, like why we need to get out of this fight or flight mode, kind of why busyness and rushing is causing physiological impacts in the body. I hope that there is enough evidence to convince you that something needs to change beyond conventional health and fitness models, beyond diet and exercise, that we need to go a little bit deeper to be able to truly unlock that well-being that you want and to experience, confidence. Confidence is a huge thing, and we shouldn't feel ashamed of wanting to feel confident about making decisions and feel confident in our jobs and to feel calm and collected and vitalized. Like these aren't things that we should be stopping ourselves from feeling. So I want to talk a little bit about what a slow life would look like. And I said at the start of the call that it is very much about finding the tools and techniques and approaches that work for each individual. And this is where coaching can really help with that. It can really help you to understand what your desires and priorities are, get clear on what's important to you so that you can start to make decisions accordingly. So that is the key of a slow life. It's nothing more than beginning to understand what you really want, not what you think other people want you to want, not what you think you should do because, oh, you're competent enough, so you should just go for the promotion even though you hate your job, or you should join the gym even though you hate going to exercise classes because that's what the magazines say. It's getting rid of the should completely and really starting to make decisions based on your priorities, your values, so what you hold important. So that could be family, it could be health, it could be giving. We've all got a personal set of values that we just need to uncover and relearn. And it's really about making decisions based on desires. And desires aren't selfish. They're what helps us to really express who we are, which in turn supports the people around us to express who they are. So a slow life is about tuning in regularly to what you want and making decisions accordingly. That's it. There's a whole lot of other fluff that goes around it, but I can tell you that making those statements and coming back to them again and again about what you want, what your values are, and what you're prioritizing, that just immediately clears the overwhelm because it helps you get back in control. You're in control of your life, not the overwhelm, not the fight or flight response, not your work, nothing else. And you've really got to claim that back, because I think in our society we've kind of given it away, or we've been, what's modeled to us is that we shouldn't be in tune with our desires. We should be in tune with what everyone else is doing. So in a slow life, all actions are considered and intentional, and our actions are not taken out of fear. And that can be a difficult thing to learn, and it's really through mindfulness training that we start to appreciate how much action we might be taking that is driven by fear and driven out of the fight or flight response. So in a slow life, there's always time for relaxation, and I mean relaxation as in the evoking of the relaxation response, as well as kind of, whatever you deem relaxation for you, and restoration. So interactions with people are present, so you're not constantly thinking about your to-do list, and it's really about trying to unlock joy. So self-care in a slow life is as much of a priority as productivity is, and that is recognizing that self-care can unlock productivity. It can unlock confidence. It can model behaviours to our children and to the people around us about what a professional human being is, which is someone who looks after themselves so that they can give to others. So any to-do lists that we do within a slow life kind of context are fostering meaningful action rather than busyness. So I never have more than 3 things on my to-do list, and each one of them, per day, and each one of them I know directly relates to my goals and my vision about where I'm going. And that's not, that my goals and vision are completely selfish about all the things I want. I have goals and visions about serving and giving and being the best friend, daughter, wife, etc. that I can be as well. So in a slow life, there's headspace to reflect, create, and grow. And that feeling when you've been on holiday for a couple of weeks and suddenly this creative kind of flow comes back and you're like, wow, where's that been? Like, I used to draw as a kid and I used to paint and I used to do all of this stuff, and it's kind of been switched off. It's because we don't have the headspace for it. There is not enough space kind of in our brains because we're prioritizing productive time over everything else. So this is where the last point comes in, having time for unstructured, informal activities. So not everything has to be in the context of going to the gym or having fun by, going to the movies, or just having space to actually see what comes up, see what you feel, and then responding accordingly. That can be a game changer. My goodness, once you start to honor what you need and to listen to what you need, you start making decisions that are really drastically going to move you forward towards what you want in your life. So I just want to really reiterate, because I know, and I had it, and I speak about this in my blog post, that we all have this deep down resistance to slowing. And it comes out as, well, of course she can talk about slowing down because she doesn't have a job and I've got kids, and we all have a million excuses as to why we can't slow down. And I'm just giving some tough love here. They're just excuses, and it's resistance. It is resistance, and it's coming from a place of fear. A slow life is not about sitting on the couch all day. It's not about not working, unless you really decide as part of your desires that that's something you want. It's not about being unproductive or being lazy or being selfish or opting out of life. And it's certainly not about avoiding responsibilities. In fact, I would argue that it's about actually committing to living the life that you wanted, and thereby taking ownership and responsibility for your actions rather than being buffered around by everything else and everyone else. The resistance is very real, and it comes from the fact that we have, for most of our lives, been told that to succeed we need to achieve, and to achieve we need to do productive things like make money, go to work, get degrees, be busy. Basically, it's the glorification of busy. And I completely understand how deep that resistance might be. You might genuinely turn around and say to me, there is no possible way for me to slow down. But what that technically means is that you don't want to slow down, that you are not ready to make decisions around prioritizing your health and well-being. So I just want to get really clear on that, and I just want to just cut through any of those excuses that might be coming up, but I also want to recognize and, in a compassionate way, understand where those fears come from. They can come from different places in each of us, but the most common thing I see in a lot of women is that it comes from a place of not feeling worthy, of not feeling good enough. And so we've spent our whole lives trying to bloody prove ourselves to people because we're petrified of not being enough, not only in our own eyes, but in other people's eyes. And so slowing down can feel like the equivalent of giving up, or it can feel like the equivalent of quitting, or it can feel like the equivalent of not being good enough. And it's not. At some stage in our adult lives, we're going to have to come face to face with these deep held beliefs which are causing physical and emotional distress. The question is, when is that going to be that time for you? So what are the benefits? I think I've already talked about them, but it's getting out of that cycle of stress and overwhelm. It's about improving our confidence, expressing who we are as women and not being afraid to do that. I wrote a lot in my blog today about what people say on their deathbeds, and all of them have elements of a slow life in there. And one of them, which really resonates with me quite deeply, is the fear around, or not the fear, sorry, the regret around not being able to express who we truly are to the world. I mean, it actually breaks my heart to think that there are women going out in the world every day suppressing who they are to please other people. And it breaks my heart because I was that woman as well. It improves our digestive and hormonal symptoms. Slowing down and addressing stress and anxiety can improve the overall well-being. Most importantly, can stop that cycle of self-sabotage and self-criticism, which we all get into habits of, and which is a background pattern that's running in the brain, which is creating a level of overwhelm. There's only so many patterns that we can have running in the background of our brain. The more things going on back there, like I'm not good enough, I don't look very nice, all of that stuff, that's creating as much overwhelm as the actual external stresses that we're kind of dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I've already talked about improving productivity. You know, when you're calm and when you're centered, you are able to work in a much more productive way than you are if you're doing a billion things at once. You know, multitasking, yes, women are great at it. No, it's not great. It's not a great way to operate. Doing one thing and doing it calmly and not checking social media 15 times in between, like, that's productivity. And imagine, you know, I went from working 60-hour weeks to working 30, and I'm twice as productive now that I know how to switch off the fight or flight response. So it fosters a sense of calm during the day. It models self-care to others, which, you know, for me is really critical, that we start to actually, as women, stand up and say, these are our boundaries, this is what I need, and that's okay. And, you know, for our children in particular, I don't want my children, for example, seeing me being stressed and anxious all the time, or my friends or my family. It's not something that I want to be modeling on a day-to-day basis, regardless of how much money I'm making or how many promotions I've had. And let me just say on that point, slowing down is not about giving up those dreams. If your dream is to climb up the corporate ladder, or your dream is to start an NGO and, you know, work with certain populations, or your dream is to become an entrepreneur, it's not about giving up any of those dreams. It's about checking back in with, well, is that dream really a reality of what I want? And if it is, then how can I get there in a way that's not going to burn me out? How can I get there in a way that is respectful of myself and other people as well? So it's allowing space for the things we love, reducing anxiety, and I've already talked about relationships. So we're really getting to the pointy end now, and I'd love to hear any feedback you have in the comments, whether there's been any realizations. Just keep the conversation going. Have a cup of tea if you need. We're going to get into some tools now. I've talked a lot about the reasons why we should slow down and what are the benefits, but you're like, how do I do it? And it's a really good question. It's the fundamental question, actually, of why we're all here, I'm sure. So conversely to the idea that we sometimes hear in mainstream media about quick fixes and detoxes and weight loss pills, slowing down absolutely has to be a long-term goal. It's not going to be something that's achieved overnight, and it's not going to be something that you're going to see the benefits of immediately. However, having said that, the problem with short-term approaches is that they can lead to overwhelm and stress. They create so much pressure on ourselves that I've seen, and myself included, like, we fail and then we beat ourselves up for it. So we set ourselves a goal like, in 2 months I'm going to lose 3 kilos and run 5Ks, and when we fail we're like, oh, I knew I wasn't good enough anyway. Short-term approaches are very outcome driven, so it's very focused on kind of what you want the end point to be. And, you know, life doesn't have endpoints, so there's no, you know, they can be great to help us focus our attention. But at the end of the day, what I've noticed a lot with women is they can actually create cycles of self-sabotage. A lot of short-term kind of approaches to well-being are externally motivated. It's about how we want to look, how we want to portray ourselves to the world, as opposed to what we want to feel within. And therefore, they're not as sustainable. There's been studies that have proven that. They're based on kind of this idea of immediate gratification, physical results, and they're kind of really based in this masculine energy of driving and pushing and achieving and being rational, as opposed to allowing us to tap into our feminine energy, which is more intuitive, which is more emotional, which is much more I guess, about surrender as opposed to action. So short-term outcomes, you know, short-term approaches to well-being are about fast, big changes, you know, and quickly, and they can be unsustainable. So the approach that I take with my clients, and the approach that I would recommend if slowing down is something that you're thinking about seriously, is that you start to see it as a process, and that within the process there'll be ups and downs, and you'll have to turn around some days, and there'll be great days and there'll be hard days, but all of those things, all of those experiences will help you to grow and will help you to build on already your existing wisdom to create the life and well-being that you really deserve and desire. So it's about understanding the journey as opposed to the outcome. So long-term kind of approaches to well-being, and one that has to be fostered if we're going to slow down, is that it has to be internally motivated, driven by what you really want, driven by what you really desire in your life, and not necessarily by what you're going to look like, or the person that you're going to necessarily be seen to be at the end of it. At the end of the day, the long-term approach is going to foster both the emotional and the physical results that you want. It combines both the feminine and masculine energy. So it's about harnessing, you know, the drive and fire, you know, within the masculine, pushing, driving if you need, and then adopting those moments of surrender, of receiving, of giving, of being intuitive. So the long-term approach can foster growth and resilience. It's really about being the change you want to see in the world. And it's focused on making small, very small sometimes, tweaks and habitual changes over long periods of time. And in a way, it's a lot more self-compassionate, and it's a lot more sustainable. And I talked about it just then, but, you know, really getting out of this idea that well-being is going to come if you set yourself a goal and work your bum off towards it, and be rigid on yourself and be harsh on yourself, and that eventually you'll get there and you'll be happy for the rest of your life. You know, success is about the journey. It's about the ups and the downs, and, you know, this middle picture of the curls. And sometimes, you know, within that you'll feel so far away from the end point, but you'll be closer than you think. And it's about enjoying that journey as much as we can, because that's ultimately what life is. And then the third picture there, just what it can look like. You know, I think success in this element, like if you're really serious about overwhelm and anxiety and fatigue and getting rid of them, then getting help and actually asking for help can really support you on that journey. So how can we do it? How can we start living a slow life to spark up? First thing I've already talked about is to get very clear on your desires and the vision of what you want your life to look like. We're going to do an exercise shortly that will help with that. Developing any kind of mindfulness meditation or breathing practice that switches on the relaxation response is absolutely essential. So starting then to make the decisions based on your personal priorities, desires, and visions. And let me tell you that there will be days when you feel like you're going backwards, and that you're looking on job websites when you've decided that you don't want to go for a promotion, or you're behaving in a way that seems like totally averse to the slow life approach. And that's part of it, you know. It's constantly making those tiny little decisions about what you need and want, that over time it'll become second nature, and you'll really start to hone into that intuition, and you'll be able to make the decisions faster. Really changing, you know, small things like changing how we speak about ourselves can foster more space in our minds by getting rid of those background patterns of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. So just in the language you choose to describe yourself and to yourself as well as to others, you know, that's part of it. That's really part of stopping asking permission to live the life you want. So taking as many opportunities as you can find to activate the relaxation response. And there's loads of tools for that, and I'm going to give you one tonight. You know, start eating what feels good for your body. Get rid of diets, get rid of any kind of rigid structure you have that's creating more overwhelm, and just start eating what feels good and what actually aligns with your vision. In a similar way, you know, start moving in a way that feels good. If you're not going to the gym, get rid of it. Stop creating another reason to be overwhelmed and lacking self-compassion, and just start having the intention to move more in ways that you enjoy. And over time, you'll start to become more habitually inclined to move in a way that you love and that really lights you up. So decluttering small areas of your home is a really effective way of starting to create some more space in your mind and to foster a greater sense of well-being. Becoming more conscious as a consumer, and that's both in the way that you shop and eat, as well as what you do. So, you know, not operating from that place of fear. So not reaching for things to fill a need that you feel that you haven't necessarily explored deeper, but really coming from a place of, this is what my body needs, this is what I need, this would make me feel in a certain way that aligns with my vision, not I need this to make me feel a hole that I'm feeling in my life right now. And, you know, constantly rewarding yourself for these tiny little tweaks that you've done. Reward yourself for saying no to something that doesn't align with what you want. Here's 10 ideas that you could start implementing immediately. And they're tweaks, you know, choose one, do it for a month, choose another one, do it for a month, but really get clear on what you want. At the end of the day, I can't tell you what you need. I can't tell you exactly the things that will work for you, but I can help you uncover them for yourself. So try waking up or learning to wake up without an alarm clock. You know, triggering the fight or flight response first thing in the morning with a really loud, obnoxious ringtone, and then looking at your screen first thing is like setting the day off in this, you know, cycle of adrenaline. And it changed my life when I just started waking up naturally with the sun and stopped using an alarm clock altogether. Your body knows when it's had enough sleep, and it will wake up so long as you have given it enough sleep. So, you know, working on how you eat, so doing it mindfully without reading your phone, chewing your food, tasting things. These are all just mindfulness practices. So taking 5 minutes in the morning to do deep belly breaths. Now, deep belly breaths, if you didn't watch my last training, go back and watch it. It's the quickest way and the easiest way to evoke the relaxation response. So doing that for 5 minutes instead of looking at social media, really going to start to foster a sense of calm in the morning as opposed to a sense of overwhelm and stress, and a habit of overwhelm and stress. So changing your social media newsfeed or what you look at work. I don't read the news. If something happens that I need to know about, I will know about it. But I just found that the negative emotions of it were really holding me back from being able to live my truth. And so, you know, I really limit what I see and I try and see positive things. And I've changed my newsfeed so that I do see positive things as opposed to negative things, as opposed to things that make me feel like I need to compare myself to others. It's just an idea that you could try. So if you are already fatigued and suffering from adrenal fatigue, finding opportunities to lie flat for 10 minutes a day is essential. It reduces the strain on the adrenal glands and assists blood flow to the kind of kidney area and helps promote rest and relaxation. So it's not about sitting up, you have to be lying flat to really get the benefits of that. So if you're already at that quite chronic state, finding opportunities to rest and relax on a flat surface as much as you can is going to help to reduce the physical load off the body. I've already talked about limiting the to-do list to 3 items per day and making them meaningful according to where you're going rather than just filling it up with busyness. You know, and prioritizing things that are going to give you energy as opposed to continually prioritizing things that take energy away. There's some examples, Again, it's really up to what's going to work for you. It's your life. You have to find the, using the slow life principles, once you've got your vision and your desires, you can then play around with tools and techniques. So I want to go into 2 tools that are going to help you to really kickstart this stuff. And for the first one, I want you to have a pen and paper ready. So if you don't, I'll give you a minute to do that. And once you've had it, once you've got your pen and paper, I just want you to close your eyes and to relax in your chair. And I want you to start to bring your awareness to your breath. So without changing the breath or without judging it in any way, just bringing your awareness to the breath in and the breath out. You'll be feeling the body relax a little bit into the chair as you do. And I want you to imagine that you're walking along a path in a beautiful forest. Just trust whatever image comes to you. You're walking along this path and it's so peaceful. You can hear the birds overhead and you can feel the wind in the trees. You just feel an enormous weight off your shoulders, like you're completely free in that moment. And as you walk along the path, in the distance you see a door, and the door is a beautiful wooden door. And it's just sitting there in the middle of the path, welcoming you to open it. And you know that on the other side of the door is the life that you really want. As you approach the door, you feel an enormous sense of calm and peace. And as you reach down to open it, you step through into a beautiful space that is filled with things that you know truly light you up. It's filled with items or space that really represents what you want. And you look around the room taking in every single detail and you smile because you realize that this door has always been there and you've only now just decided to open it. You take notice of the little things, what the carpet looks like, how big the windows are, every little item, the photos. And as you kind of scan the room, at the corner of your eye, you see a woman walking towards you. And she's you. Except that she's you in a calmer, more healthy, vibrant state. And she's smiling at you with the most beautiful, compassionate smile. And you look at her and you start to mentally take note of all the great things about her right now. You notice how her demeanor is. You notice how she holds herself, what she's wearing. You notice whether she has a giving vibe, the energy that she's emitting. You notice ultimately how she's seeing you with compassion. You notice that she has a sense of ease and calm. So much so that you begin to walk toward her. And as you do, you realize that it's possible to become her. And when you're close enough, you actually feel yourself stepping into her. And you truly appreciate who she is because now you're embodying her. So you feel that sense of ease. You feel the calm. You feel the weight off your shoulders. You feel joy. You feel symptom-free. And as you stand there in the body of the new you, in the room that truly represents you, an enormous sense of joy and pleasure washes over you. Because in doing this, you've begun to understand what you want and what you need. And in the new you take one more look around the beautiful space that reflects who you are and what you want. Maybe there's a fireplace, maybe there's a big kitchen table for you and your family. Take it all in. It represents what you hold dear. And you make a decision then to walk back out the door, this new, confident, inspired, calm you. And as you open the door, you don't feel sad, you feel happy. You step back out onto the path, you close the door behind you, and you start to walk away, feeling free and alive. And just deepening the breath now, coming back to the room. I just want you to open your eyes. Just for 1 or 2 minutes, write down what you saw. Write down the words that you saw. Every little detail that you can remember, not only about the space, but about your future you. How did she feel? What was important to her? The subconscious mind knows what we want. We've just forgotten how to access it, and we've switched it off. So doing visualizations like this can really help us to tune back into our truth and what we really need. So as you continue to write down now everything that you saw, everything that you felt, you'll begin to get a picture of the vision of your life that you want. What values are important to you? And over time, and this is what I do with my coaching clients as well, we develop that into a vision statement or a vision picture that you can refer back to again and again. And from that, you can then develop, what are my priorities? If health wasn't a huge aspect of that visualization, maybe focusing all your attention on going to the gym or your diet isn't what's right for you right now. Maybe it's more about fostering relationships. Your intuition knows what you need. We just need to reconnect. So I want you to stop writing now. Take a big breath in and a big breath out. And just let that go, and you can come back to that after the call and work more on it. You can email me and we can work on it together. But I want to share one more tool, and it's a nice tool that we can go into the final elements of this call with. So I talked a little bit about how to evoke the relaxation response, and deep breathing is the #1 way we can do it. And it's simple and it's free and it's available to us all the time. But I want to share a tool today that's called grounding. And you might have heard about grounding. But it's basically about shifting the energy away from the head and the chest down into the lower parts of our body, into the ground, so that we can start to evoke the relaxation response and get rid of the sense of overwhelm and stress that we often feel. So grounding in the traditional sense comes from the idea that we put our feet onto the earth and we feel the connection between our feet and the ground, and that energetically there is a magnetic attraction between our foot and the ground that enables us to kind of channel energy that's coming into our body down into the earth and away. So it's about getting rid of the negative energy out of our bodies and then pulling up the beautiful fresh energy coming from the middle of the earth into our bodies. So walking bare feet in the sand, in the grass, or just even doing exercises like stimulating your feet through reflexology or on rolling balls or whatever is a really beautiful way to ground, because we're simply bringing our awareness into the lower areas of our body, which we don't often do. You know, I think I walked around for many years of my life just like a floating head, you know, like I wasn't even aware of what was happening below it. And I think a lot of us feel like that sometimes because we get stuck up there. So grounding is a really beautiful tool that you can use any time of the day. So I want you to get a comfortable position on your chair and place both feet on the ground. I want you to sit as straight as you can, but without straining, and just gently place your hands on your legs, on your lap, with your palms facing up. And gently closing the eyes, bring the awareness back to the breath again. Not focusing on whether it's good or bad, just focusing on the breath, being there, in and out, and relaxing the body as you do. When we use our awareness in this relaxed state, it's like a laser beam of focus. Where our awareness is in our body, energy goes. So with that in mind, I want you to bring your awareness or your focus to the point where your feet are touching the ground. And with every exhale, I want you to imagine that there is a magnetic force pulling the soles of your feet and making them very heavy against the ground. Like there's almost an invisible energy that's pulling your feet and your legs more toward the ground. And then just start to visualize any negative energy, stress, anxiety being released from the feet into the earth. Keeping the awareness on the feet and the legs. And then as you feel the weight pulling the feet and then the ankles and then the legs and then the thighs down toward the ground. So now you're almost feeling that magnetic pull of energy, pulling that negative energy all the way from your legs down into the feet and then into the earth, deep into the earth. I want you to also relax the hips. And just let the hips go and feel the buttocks on the chair and feel that become heavy as well. And just revel for a moment in this feeling that the whole lower body is being pulled into the earth. And when you're ready, just bringing the attention back to the room and gently opening the eyes. It's a very quick visualization that demonstrates grounding, but it's really just about focusing the energy in the lower parts of the body and into the earth so that we're just evoking the relaxation response and removing the sense of kind of being stuck in our heads. It's a great one to practice. There's some guided visualizations available online, or you can call me and we can do one together. So we're nearly at the end, and I've talked about a little bit about how to start doing this, but I wanted to share my roadmap for doing it. This is a program that I've just developed and I'm extremely proud of it. It comes right from the heart. It's a 12-week program specifically for women who want to address anxiety and fatigue. And it's really for driven women who want to make a contribution and who feel like their anxiety and overwhelm is holding them back at the moment. So they're women who are ready to do the inner work and who have tried a lot of kind of the conventional health and fitness models and who are ready to go beyond that. So I've already talked about this roadmap. You know, getting clear on your desires is so essential. From that, developing your priorities. Starting to move in a way that lights you up is essential. And then again, starting to eat what your body needs, getting off this idea of diets and fads and restrictive eating. Learning to breathe and relax through a mindfulness or meditation practice is absolutely game-changing. And again, it doesn't have to be something that doesn't resonate with you. Finding different ways that work for you could be just through deep breathing. That's really going to help you to slow down and create the space you need to make decisions about how you want to move forward. After that, it's about, you know, you'll begin to understand some of the limiting beliefs and patterns that might have been holding you back. And from there, it's kind of simple to see how your work might be affecting how your well-being is. So really beginning to work on how to align your work actions with your purpose and desires is something that I'm really passionate about showing women, but something that you can certainly do if you've developed these other kind of great practices along the way. And then, you know, learning to love yourself, self-compassion and self-awareness and self-love is such a critical piece of the wellbeing puzzle. I talked about it in the last training as well. And you know, from there, it's easier to unlock your health and freedom. And over time, slowing down will enable you to actually live your life. So that's my program, and that's kind of the roadmap approach that I recommend for anyone who's doing my program or not, to start to work on these little things, one little habit at a time, you know, taking the long-term approach. So I just want to share a little bit about the program for those who are interested. As I said, it's a personalized 12-week coaching program for women ready to banish overwhelm, anxiety, stress, and self-criticism for good. It includes 6 one-on-one fortnightly coaching sessions, and coaching is a really transformative way to have the support you need to make the little habits change over a long period of time. I was seeing a lot of doctors, a lot of naturopaths, a lot of personal trainers for a long time before I got a coach, and I wish I had done it sooner, because having someone there in your corner to guide you through the obstacles is absolutely priceless. I can't speak highly enough of it. And whether I'm the coach for you or someone else is, you know, look into it. Don't be afraid of asking for help. Now might be the time. So it also includes 3 pre-recorded training sessions, which is around mindfulness training. And it includes unlimited email support as well as all the workbooks and worksheets that you need. So this is the program outline. we really focus on the body stuff. So I know how important the physical stuff is in terms of confidence and just getting the energy back that you might feel like you're lacking. So we focus on how to eat according to what you need and how to move in a way that's going to light you up. And then we go into the mind stuff. So we talk about mindfulness, talk about breathing, we talk about meditation, we talk about relaxing and sleep. And we also talk about the limiting beliefs that might be holding you back. And we really get into the nitty-gritty of how to address them. And then in month 3, we get on to, like, now that you're feeling better, what do you want to do with your life? Like, what's your purpose? What... if you're not in a career you love, how can we shift? If you're in a career that you love but you're not getting the results, how can we shift that? It's really about what you choose to do with your waking hours, whether that's working or caring for others or whatever. And we look at how to align that with your desires as well. And then the last module, we look at relationships and self-love as well, and self-care. So it's a really comprehensive program that you can't get in a pill, you can't get in a book. It's kind of a process or a journey that you need to go through with someone holding your hand and helping you. I mean, you could do it on your own, and I think I tried for a long time, but it would have taken a really long time if I didn't actually ask for help. So in terms of the investment, it's just one upfront investment of $997 or 3 monthly investments of $340, which is really not a lot if you think about the cost of anxiety and overwhelm, or the cost of fatigue and what it's preventing you from doing right now. To get the tools as well as the mentoring, it's something that not a lot of coaching programs offer. And it's something that I'm really passionate about sharing, because the tools are the things that you can start to work with that can really drastically transform how you experience your day-to-day life. I really want to offer everyone on this call, including those that offer that watch the replay, a 10% discount on the whole program if you mention to me that you were on the call. So to apply for a free 45-minute discovery session to see if we'd work well together, to see if there's something that I can offer you and be of service to you, you can click on the link here or go to my website, beyondbeingwell.com/slowdown. And there's a form at the bottom of that page that you can fill in, and then I'll give you a call and we'll have our 45-minute discovery session. Completely obligation free, just a chance to get anything off your chest that might be holding you back, and to see where the coaching is something that will work for you. I also offer once off roadmap sessions, which are $150, and that is a 90-minute session, after which I give you a 2-page report which talks to the areas that might be useful for you to follow up, and share some tools and techniques as well. So it's like a mini roadmap session that can get you kick-started on your way. So to do that one, you just need to send me an email at meg@beyondbeingwell.com and say I'd like to do a 90-minute roadmap session, and let me know when might be a good time for us to book that in. So in summary, you can start putting your questions into the chat box now if you have any. We have about 10 minutes left. Slowing down isn't optional. It's absolutely necessary. I believe that anyone can slow down, no matter what your circumstances are. We can all make small changes to have a slower life and a more mindful life, no matter what our circumstances are. It's just a matter of choosing to do so. So I've talked about how rushing and stress can have a very real physical impact. And I've talked, I hope, address that concern around that slowing down isn't about giving things up. It's about getting clear on your desires and priorities and then acting accordingly. And I just want to leave it by saying that really, to get energized, well and confident, we really have to address both the internal and the external elements of health, and that includes stress and anxiety. So put your questions in the chat box if you've got any. I've loved sharing this with you. As I said, I could talk about this stuff all day. I absolutely love it. It's really my passion to serve you. So I'm going to look at the chat box now and turn this off. There you all are. I've gotten a bit hot. I left the heater on during that session, so I'm a bit like, whew, all that talking. Okay, so if anyone has any comments, feedback, anyone wants to do the roadmaps program, if there's anything that resonated, how you found the visualization, any questions you have about slowing down, any fears, concerns, now's the time to get them out. Yes, Tamsin, going to change your Facebook newsfeed. Absolutely an awesome way of really starting to shift the energy. Yeah, like shift the energy from negative to positive in your life. No, you know, the negative energy really does have an impact, and you can be affected, particularly empaths and women who care a lot. We really can be affected by other people's energy a lot, and just being aware of that and having boundaries around that as well can really help. So I love that some people are going to take action on that. Yeah, totally. The comparing stuff is you know, it's the worst. And, you know, even with a regular mindfulness practice, I still have moments where I go on Facebook and I compare myself to other health coaches or to other people. And it's something that unfortunately is quite ingrained, but something we can start to weed out if we do some mindfulness and other practices like that. Oh, you guys are so beautiful. Thank you for your comments and feedback. I really, you know, I'm here to serve, and I get uplifted by working with my clients, by engaging with people even on my blog and on Facebook, and seeing how brave women are in really tackling this stuff. Like I think that we are incredibly special in our ability to actually be like, no, I want to make a change and I'm prepared to do stuff about it. And, you know, even if your focus has until this point been a lot around diet and exercise, that's incredible. Like, you know, thousands of people don't choose to take any action. So really rewarding yourself, even for listening to this call, I think is part of the journey as well, and learning to actually receive that compliments and to receive, yeah, the congratulations, or to give yourself a pat on the back when you do reach out and ask for help, or when you do invest in yourself. Like, that starts to shift the energy as well. So thank you for your comments. I don't think there's any other questions here, so I'm going to wrap it up now. I really hope to hear from you over email if any of you have any further questions or insights from the call. But until then, have a beautiful night. Start living a slow life and taking care of yourself. And I'll see you very soon. Bye.